Hello and welcome everyone. We are here once again with some of the most interesting luminaries here, and this is the most sought after session right now of this entire conversation and event that we are having today. This is the CEO session where we are having the captains of the fintechs and those aspiring unicorns who are looking forward to scale and create some of the best brand names in the fintech globally. Friends, this session is, I am personally going to moderate this session, and this session is going to speak a lot about how are we building the unicorn next in India? What is needed? What kind of ecosystems are we speaking about? What kind of growth trajectory we have? And how are we moving ahead in this area? With me is Siddharth Dhamija. Siddharth is the CEO of Zaakpay, and which is a quick company, a very veteran payments professional in the country. Siddharth, I think it is better that each of you give one liner introduction about yourself than me speaking about you. So
Sure.
please give me a one
Okay.
liner of what you do.
Sure. Babu, thanks for having me here. Glad to be speaking at this event. Babu has been very kind in saying I've been part of this fintech journey, but yeah, last 5, 6 years out of the total 23, 24 years that I've spent, I have had an opportunity of working with as large as companies like PayPal, where I was instrumental in launching their domestic business, and also working with the newest unicorn in India on the fintech space, RazorPay, where I was amongst the first employees to run them as their CGO for a good 2+ years. So thank you so much and glad to be a part of this panel.
Full Siddharth, and it was nice to catch up with you when you were in that garage stage of Razorpay, and it was
The
really fun
penthouse.
to catch with you guys in Bangalore when you were just starting
Yeah,
up. So it was
correct,
really
correct.
fun.
Yeah.
Anand, can I have the pleasure of having a two-word introduction of yours also from a banker to a fintech entrepreneur and more? Let's know.
So, Babu, when I was in bank, I always said that I'm not a banker. When I'm
Yes.
out, please spare me the horror. It's a different life altogether, and glad that representing Nearby Technologies, Pay Nearby, we serve 500,000 retail touch points, and through them, as a B2B2C, we reach out to 150 million citizens, providing about 52 billion INR each month of transactions, makes us the largest provider of branchless banking, agent banking network in the country, in the region. And we are out here to bring the high end of technology to the bottom of the pyramid. And effectively, everything of banking you can touch through this network and play. So we are a platform on one hand to do handshake with service provider partners, and a network on the other hand to relay the services to the last mile. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand. And I really appreciate the fact that even during the banking days, you guys did fantastic initiative to go rural. And even after being a small boutique private sector bank, the kind of reach that Yes Bank made into the rural India was phenomenal. And probably that is one of the stepping stones of your success in this Pay Nearby. Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Anand.
True.
We have been
True.
having all these interactions all this while from your banker status to a fintech status, and I would love to see you more as a unicorn in the future immediately. Great. Let's learn from Surabhi. Surabhi, hi. Can you share a couple of lines about you?
Yes. Thank you, Babu, for having me, and it is really great to be a part of this panel. I take care of the startup practice at HPE and been here doing this for some time now. Been working with a lot of banking ecosystems and partners across the country, and I'm really glad to be a part of this panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Surabhi. And then comes Suhail. Suhail, hi. Lot of interesting news from your company, including the last raising of $108 million and more coming. So let's have some one-liner introduction from your side as well.
No, thanks for having me, Babu. I think still very early days for us. Capital raise is not necessarily a need for celebration. I think hopefully one day we'll be large enough that we will not require external capital. I'm building BharatPe. I am I'm sort of a comical person in this group because I'm new to fintech. This is my 6th month or 7th month of working in financial services. I come from a energy to consumer retail to FMCG background, and now I'm fintech. And learning from this wonderful panel is an experience I would not have missed for anything, right? So thank you for having me here.
So you are here to energize the fintech market from the energy segment, Suhail, and you have been doing phenomenally well by starting looking beyond just payments into lending and various other things. We look forward to more energy from you in this sector as well. Great. And Bala, you have been an industry veteran. You have spent a lot of years in technology, in Aadhaar, and various things. Let's have a small introduction of yours also.
Sure. Thanks, Babu. Thanks for having me here. Great panel. My background is that most people in cricket get maximum of 2 innings. So I'm on my 4th inning. The first inning was, I went to IIT, went abroad, went to the Silicon Valley like most of my peers did at that time. So my own background is that I went to the Silicon Valley, built Snapfish from scratch, sold it to HP. I was an MD at HP for a few years, built a business in about 20 countries. And I started my second innings after I came back to India in 2007. And my second innings was working for Nandan Nilekani at Aadhaar. So this was a very big nation building exercise. I was there on day 0 of Aadhaar before we even had an office. Great experience, went all around the country, met all kinds of interesting, very, very smart people, dedicated people. And I played a very small part, but it was a very interesting learning for me at Aadhaar. The third innings was as a venture capitalist. So I started a fund which is now called Prime Venture Partners. It's about 150 million. It's about $200 million in AUM. It's probably India's largest fintech focused fund, the seed fund. So I started with Shripati, my classmate and co-founder at Snapfish, and Sanjay Swami. And in 2016, I left the fund to start MoneyTap, which is my 4th inning. MoneyTap is it's a long play for me. It's an idea to how to revolutionize the entire fintech space. We're playing a very long game, and it's been a great journey so far. So we've done about 5,000 crores in loan dispersals. We do about 250, 300 crores a month. Right now, we have a number of other interesting products as well.
Fantastic. That's a big story cut short, but it is a lovely, interesting story and really very exciting and inspiring one. Let's get forward to learn more inspiring stuff from all you guys. So first thing that I thought of asking all of you is, all of you, none of you are those startup types today. You have all reached, become a bada bacha, and now planning to become a bigger bacha now. So when we are planning to look towards building the unicorns of the world, what exactly do you think is the kind of ecosystem required to create these unicorns of the future? Bala, you have been through so many ventures now. You have become a father of the venture business. Amongst all of us, you have probably had a maximum number of ventures. So can you just give us a highlight on what is needed actually to leapfrog these ventures into a unicorn status?
Yeah. I think people sort of overcomplicate this. There are a lot of factors that come in, but I think the most important factor is in just looking at a very, very, very large market uh, and something that is growing, right? And we have some great people like Suhail in this panel who saw UPI and then they made it very big, or the MobiQuick founders, right, who at that time saw the wallets and jumped onto it, right, and made it very big. So it's much easier to build a unicorn if you ride a trend that is already going up, right? Now, of course, it's an obvious idea. Everybody thinks that they also want to do it, but the smart ones who actually build the real unicorn are the ones who ride it well, right? They build something innovative, and they are not afraid to take risks. They're not afraid to, hurt some sentiments, right? They're not afraid to go against the current, right? Because it's easy to sort of go with the crowd, but those who take a big trend and then sort of ride against the crowd, are the ones who actually create unicorns. And I think it's not about raising funding and all of that. All of that is obviously super important, and that's literally what makes you a unicorn is the valuation that a venture capitalist gives you. But all of those will come. I don't think we should focus on that. I think we should focus on what is the trend, what is going up and to the right very fast on a curve, and how am I taking a position, even if it means going against the popular wisdom.
Interesting. So one is to catch the trend, catch it at the right time, and then flow with it. That is one of the biggest advice that you have been giving. As an ecosystem, Anand, you have been in this game for quite some time as a banker today, as a fintech. How is the ecosystem supporting it? What kind of ecosystem do you need today? When you are a scale up, at least you know that your idea is successful, you have scaled up to a level, and when you are going to the next level of unicorn, what kind of ecosystem and support do you require as a fintech?
Yeah, Babu, look at the ecosystem we are talking about, where the consumers are leapfrogging. Yeah, people did not buy television, move to mobile directly. Did not buy landline, move to mobile directly. Did not use card, move to UPI directly. We are talking of that ecosystem. We
Wow.
believe in partnerships. We believe that we work because banks are there. We are because banks are. It's a extension of thought to reach out the financial services with governance and support on one hand, with tech and ground execution on the other. With regard to the ingredients, if you say to transform the ecosystem, I will not comment on becoming a unicorn yet. There is enough that is happening in India with the with the Startup India program already announced. I think the other enabling frameworks around token, bacon, account aggregators, Sehmati, what have you, all of these things combined, I think, are very, very facilitative and well said. If you are able to spot the trend and position yourself, and as Nandan says, it's easy to ask for apology than ask for permission. So if you are able to be that and do that, there is enough available in the ecosystem to do the right thing.
Interesting. And I think when Bala worked actually with Nandan Nilekani and team at UPI, I'm sure the entire effort of the government and the ecosystem was to create that kind of ecosystem favorable not only for the people or the population, but also for the technology sector and the financial services sector to scale up the businesses using this single unique identity and take it to the next level. So these kind of ecosystems are pretty interesting. Let us now, one is of course creating an ecosystem, the other is tech as a business sector, because ultimately fintech has got that big part of it called as the tech, which is embedded into it. What kind of technologies today are we playing with when we want to look at powering the fintech of the future? Suhail, you have been creating a lot of waves in the market. I know you are not a technologist, but you are a business technologist. So I want to know from a generalistics perspective, because we have a tech expert already sitting there in the form of Surabhi. So,
Yeah.
as an energizer, what can you share?
No, I was actually waiting to hear Surbhi's thoughts on this, but let me go first. I think ours is a very simple business here. We accept payments, and we have to make them frictionless and fast and cheap, right? So a lot of innovations and NPCI, of course, we talked about on the back door, has sort of enabled that, right? So I think I'm looking forward to some of these NUEs getting set up and building more use cases around it, right? So if you have a 15, 20 years back, lending on POS was not really thought about. Now it's become a big thing with buy now, pay later or EMI options. I believe something very similar can be very easily created on a UPI architecture, right? So how do you keep it safe? How do you ensure that no frauds are happening? Still needs to be figured. But I think what more can you do with UPI is sort of one part of technology, which is seeing a lot of work. We are doing some work, being sort of one of the pioneers in the space, but I'm sure equally the tech ecosystem is doing a lot of work on this. I think the second is if you have to really make India credit sort of available across the country, I think we've historically resorted to a lot of civil bureau type score, but that's not really inclusivity, right? Because India is not a predominantly bank country now. Like a lot of people have banks, but bank history, bank balances are very, very thin, right? Cash is still widely used in circulation, so people's income tax filings, GST filings may be like too thin to really enable credit. How do you build a tech stack which pulls up alternate data and enables you to underwrite a guy who a conventional banking system would have said not fit for credit or subprime, for a lack of a better word? Again, a lot has happened on this, and a lot will continue to happen. We are doing a bunch of work, but I'm sure there are companies out there which are doing like 10x better work than what we are doing on this. And I think the last piece is collection, right? It's always easy to give out loans. How do you collect them back without incurring a huge friction cost of collection is a important area. Um and I think that's an area where a lot less work has been done. And I think UPI and a payment gateway are like just the starting layers of that, but there is a lot which needs to be built on that as well, right? So at least that's how I see it. But at some stage, we'd love to hear Surabhi's thoughts as well.
Fantastic. So you have already created a very good ecosystem, especially by binding together all the very good similarity between your business and Anand's business is Pay Nearby has brought in rural India, the rural consumers under one fold, and you have brought in all merchants irrespective of rural or urban merchants, and created a very back to back, very interesting integrated backend for them to not just take or receive payments. You have empowered payments for anybody and everybody there with a QR code. And the second task of it is to make it available at any point in time. And Anand has done the same thing with the consumers focus there. So and very interesting play of technology there. Now Surabhi, coming to you, technology is something that needs to have a 100% fault tolerant kind of setup, with a kind of transaction failures, that the more that number of transaction failures, the lesser will be the dependence upon the technology, especially in the payment space and in every space for that matter. So what kind of technologies do you think are powering the fintechs of the future today? How are it making fintechs more scalable, more reliable and trustworthy today?
Yeah, so Babu, we've been working with a lot of large companies, and we've definitely seen this, that data is exploding, and everyone is collecting data at their end, whether it is data coming from IoT devices, or data coming from transactions, or data that people are collecting to build different risk models. So we're seeing a lot of data being collected, but at the end of the day, how is it that you're really utilizing that data? Like Suhail mentioned, that we are building use cases, so that is really important on how you're building your use cases, what is the analytic models that you're building. Also, it is very important to look at your government and regulations, because we see a lot of data leak happening, a lot of security breaches which are happening, especially most of the fintech community is they're born in the cloud, and the security that they have on a public cloud, which is a shared infrastructure pool, is and could be a little limited. So that is where I feel, as a tech company, that we must really concentrate on is building, how do we prevent this data leak from happening, and how do we kind of move into a hybrid sort of an environment where we keep all our customer sensitive data into an infrastructure which is owned by a fintech, or kept closely guarded by the companies, so that we have these less of breaches and less of security lapses that we see very, very often. So, and of course, high performance is definitely very important. So yeah.
Interesting. So, of course, like you rightly pointed out, all these payment ecosystems or all these fintechs are mostly born out of the cloud. And while once upon a time a cloud was a strict no-no, ask Anand about it. He has been the chief innovation officer. He must be very strongly, agreeing to me on how the banks were absolutely reluctant and what he must have had to struggle when he was a banker to get into the cloud or get into newer areas of fintechs, especially. Now, let me come to another very interesting area of conversation. This is for you, Siddharth. Uh, Typically, I have not asked you anything till now because I wanted to put my biggest bomb on you first. You have seen two, three wonderful ventures. You have worked as a startup in Razorpay, made it prosper to whatever level. You have worked with the biggest fintech in the world, PayPal, and today you are once again with setting up one of the new interesting arm of a big fintech in India.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are a lot of interesting stuffs we can talk about growth in the fintech, which is organic versus inorganic. It is not a new story today, and luckily so. This pandemic, I have seen when I run my deal room for the fintechs, where I facilitate fintechs to get access to the VCs. One of the biggest thing in the last few months that I have been observing is the uh, requirement of having more and more acquisitions are in place today compared to that of VCs or investors wanting to invest small time or pieces into fintechs because the valuations are good and people
Yeah.
want to make hay while the sun shines. So, what is your entire perspective on this inorganic growth story into a unicorn status? You have had written
Sure.
a blog as well, so let's listen
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
some aspects of it.
So something which I didn't write on the blog was that as Suhail was candid in saying that he's landed up in fintech 6 months back, I was not very candid in writing into that blog that I kind of by mistake or accidentally landed into fintech what 5 6 years back. Okay, my
Okay.
background for those who don't know me has been purely into telecom. Okay, whether it is the hardcore telecom of the erstwhile Motorola pages, then the Motorola walkie-talkie, secured communication for police, paramilitary, moving into the poster boy of products, telecom products, software products in India, in a company called Subex, where I used to be responsible for Middle East, Africa, and Europe market. Now, anything and everything that I look into fintech today, which is the last 5 6 years of my journey, I actually go back to comparing itself into the telecom segment. Now I know a lot of panelists, especially, are as experienced as what I have, or in fact, some of the panelists have got more experience than what I have on this panel. But for some of the younger generation people who are on the call, who are listening to us virtually, I don't know how many of you know, but way back in 2000, from 2008 till 2014 was when telecom was at its peak. I remember landing into Mumbai or sometime in Delhi for our, or sometime in Bangalore for our quarterly meetings. And I used to see, from the Bangalore airport till the place where I was staying, hoardings of telecom operators trying to incentivize users by all kind of things, offers. They were operators from countries who had no idea how India is run. They were operators from Europe. They were operators from Middle East who thought India is the best telecom market to be in. Okay, and just hear me out for one more minute, and I will give you the correlation as to what is happening in fintech right now. Now, suddenly, good sense prevailed starting 2013, going up to 2015, 16, and for people who observe telecom now, there are only three players left. Okay, barring fourth, which is the government. Now, we could give credit of all this to Mukesh Bhai that he got Geo in or whatever it is. But where I'm trying to compare fintech is that that same race for success, which was there in telecom from 2008 till 2014, is exactly what is happening in fintech right now. Okay, fintech is at a pace where telecom was in those 5 6 years. Having said that, what is the comparison? The comparison is very simple, and my prediction is very, very simple. In the next 2 to 3 years, there'll be a lot of M&A opportunities that will be created. There'll be a lot of acquisitions that will happen. And in the next end of 3 years, you'll have some serious 5 to 6 players. Unlike in telecom, which is still lot of dependencies on frequency allocation. You've seen how the frequencies were allocated yesterday for thousands of crores. Fintech does not have those issues. So fintech, I'm not saying we'll have only 3-4 players left. Where I'm coming is that these M&A opportunities are already there on the table, and consolidation will happen. Good sense will prevail on a lot of investors who are currently flushing in money into the fintech. But come 2023, come 2024, you will have 5 to 6 large players who will predominantly be running the whole fintech of India. Having said that, will innovation die? The answer is no. The innovation, whether it is the NUIs or the things that are coming up on the table right now, innovation will still continue, but serious players will have a lot of M&A activities in the next 2 to 3 years.
Consolidation is in the air.
Absolutely, absolutely. In the air, you can see some real big players coming into India, trying to invest, if not directly, coming via the indirect routes. Messages are always there in the market.
Interesting thought, Siddharth. I think that was definitely worth a blog to read about. Anand, you have been a payments player for some time, and how do you see the payments industry consolidating now? And what kind of next level growth can we expect, since you have been an expert in this sector for quite some time?
No expert, Babu. Thank you for the compliments. But it's a evolution. And while as much as the tech is important, the UX is the real hero. And these are two power horses actually. Actually, the UX and technology, the combination, technology being the power horse and UX being the reins to steer it in the right direction is important. The ecosystem, if we say how it will evolve, is you look at the landscape of 450 million users of the messaging app, and yet only 110 million users on UPI. So there is a lot which is broken between the two parts, the two numbers. If you look at 115 million debit cards which were expired in November 2019, just before the government, people went up to the bank to withdraw cash and not swipe the card because the card was not active because of chip and pin guidelines. So the legs are broken. If I say bank hai banking nahi, niti hai ayojan nahi, it will not be out of place. And hear me out. When you look at the 450 million users with so much of usage on the texting app, the mobile numbers are not registered in the bank either. On one hand, the debit cards are not active. On the other hand, the mobile numbers are not linked in the bank. So what have you for UPI other than these two things? So there are broken pieces which we are mending, and it doesn't make sense for many banks to reissue the card, re-card citizens, because he did not use it for 10 years. And if he uses it now, there is no MDR left on below 2,000 transactions. So what Put kaput to kyun dhan sanchay, put saput to kyun is the same idea here. Why do you issue the card if you did not use, and if you use, what is the benefit? But we are standing up to rebank this India. So the ecosystem is amazing. The pieces are there. The trends are observed. The technologies are done. The deployments are in the move. And India shall evolve from assisted service to self-service soon. With regard to the technologies that we see, the 8 trends in the fintech, with your insurtech, investech, lendtech, etc., payment tech, of course, with dozens overlapping, it brings up very clearly that there is a digital savvy greedy India, which is digitized, the 8% users, and then rest are marginalized and subsidized, 92%. There is huge work over there. And I'm glad people are here working on that segment, even to start with lending to them by Bala, or enabling those merchants by BharatPe, or MobiKwik equally to equip those users by technologies by HPE. So the ecosystem is fast evolving, and the trend is speaking loud for itself that there is a digitized India and the marginalized and subsidized India, which watches the same Netflix. The aspirations are similar. The ambitions are same. That zid aage badhne ki is same for everyone, but for the availability. So what we do is we bring the high end of technology to the bottom of the pyramid, and which means that we have brought in an online e-commerce platform in assisted mode to our retail shops. if you call it trend, a fertilizer shop in Bihar, Khagadia, my hometown, will be able to sell a football to the son of farmer at a fertilizer shop because Ammi Jaan बैठी है पीछे power करने के लिए. So online to offline is done. The offline to online bit is what we are integrating now with the ONCD, ONDC, the online network for digital commerce, where all our 500,000 plus retailers will be able to pipe their products online and beyond that to sell local in a global environment. So trend is what you set. वो किसी का मोहताज नहीं होता बाला या बाबू. ट्रेंड किसी का मोहताज नहीं होता और यही माटी उभरेगी, यही जर्रा चमकेगा. We will only rise and we will change the environment. We will set the trends. Watch out.
Oh, Fintech has become very poetic. You remind me of Abhishek Pant.
It is, Abu. It is a poem. It is an art. Yeah, it's not. It's not easy
Absolutely.
to draw.
Sorry, I am going to jump in and I'm going to say, Anand ji, this completely resonates with me because, my house help, before COVID, she didn't have a bank account, she didn't have anything. And post COVID, now I'm doing only online payments to her. I am not going to make any, I do not make any cash payments. And with her daughter, I can discuss the same Netflix shows that I watch. We have a conversation now. कि हम लोग Netflix पे क्या देख रहे हैं. So yes, I completely resonate with that.
Brilliant.
So
you and I are India. We are India. We are Bharat. We are the connectors.
Anand, it's not fair to throw Hindi poetry at a South Indian. Yeah, come on.
I was waiting for that.
Bala, we can start a South Indian poetry between both of us, then rest of them will look at it.
We'll be going a little off topic.
Excellent.
Hindi आती है. Bala, you are serving Bharat. And you know Hindi well. You have spoken in Hindi.
Of course, you must have traveled all over India to do his UPI. So there is no second thought about it that he doesn't know about it. Great, Bala. Bala, let me just come from Anand to you. This interesting conversation about everything about the growth ultimately rests upon people. Okay. And it is also said that unless even if you have an intel inside and you have an idiot outside, it will not work. So how are you powering the guys outside with the intel inside and making both the things work? How is this manpower upgradation or skilling working for fintechs today? You are into the lending business now. You have been working with a lot of different sets of people. How are you upgrading them to the technology and digital world?
So, let me do the inside out first. So in terms of inside the company, at MoneyTap, we have sort of nearly tripled our workforce during COVID. So from March of last year to today, we have nearly tripled our workforce and added mostly engineers. So this has been like the biggest challenge I've ever had in any of my innings so far. Adding so many people, but more importantly, adding them during COVID, with lockdowns, etc., etc. It's been a fascinating challenge actually, but and just getting, like the rest of the planet is getting used to working on Zoom and Microsoft Teams and every other online. But what has happened, at least from a COVID point of view for us, is that once we opened the office, and we opened the office quite early, even in September, as soon as the peak COVID died, we opened the office. And we're seeing now that, life is sort of returning, just pretty much back to normal. If I were to turn my camera around, you'll see everybody around in the office. So luckily, I think this COVID has been sort of a temporary thing and it's kind of gone away. But in terms of skilling and answering the larger question on skilling to fintech, the shortest answer to that question is data and data science. So I think everybody on this panel will agree that the essence of fintech is going to be data science, and it's relatively new. It's not as common as getting a Java programmer or a Python programmer. Python is a part of data science, obviously, but this is something which is, I think, India is fast catching up, but there's still a gap, and we have addressed it is through training. Right, we hire a lot of freshers and just train them. So that's kind of like the short answer in terms of an inside out view on this. And I'll pause and
yeah, that way COVID has been the biggest trainer of this world. It has ensured that each one of us get trained to all those things that we never imagined before. That is true. And it has also leapfrogged all our businesses, because most of us who have been into the digital world have had our customers automatically training themselves, and no UPI needed to train people, no NPCI needed to train people to make payments, because ultimately when it was the need, everyone did it.
Exactly.
So
This is
uh,
Surabhi's point on her maid accepting UPI payments. I think the
absolutely.
outside training has actually happened because of COVID, I would say. And
Absolutely.
all of us
So,
benefited from it as a business.
absolutely. And when it comes to creating all this, Suhail, you have been dealing with all these merchants, and I am sure when you first, any payment company for that matter, who goes to a merchant to sell a POS machine will get a flag from him. Why should I pay you for the POS machine, and then again for a monthly rental and all that? You have made all that a history with your QR code based payments, and on the top of it you have also integrated it backend with all their suppliers. You have integrated it with lending and all that. How did you get into this education spree, even for your retailers as well as for your
No,
own
I
members?
think it was. No, I think it was a big challenge, by the way. I think UPI wasn't also easy, right? Because if you go back UPI 2 years when we at one level stupid, right? If Babu were to pay Suhail Sameer on a QR code or using UPI, it was free to both of us. But if Babu was to pay to a retailer, it was retailer used to be charged 1.5%, right? So it was the exact same architecture, exact two bank accounts. Retailer is eventually also an individual. He was paying 1.5% because the businesses were designed that way for a variety of reasons, right? So I think it was a uphill battle to go to a retailer and tell him this is free, right? Because he would not believe it's free. A retailer used to people coming to him and selling him stuff and taking money from him. To tell him that we are doing this for free, first was shocking, and then it was what is in there for you, right? So it took a lot of feet on the street, people going actually retailer by retailer. We say we are a tech business, but we are actually as hardcore a people business, and so actually it's not very different from my FMCG business, right? So for the first 2 years, we had roughly 7 to 8,000 people on the street, going store after store, and explaining to him on why this is free, how it is beneficial, why should he take his money through the app when he has the option of actually taking it cash in front of him, right? So I think from there, I think demonetization, now COVID, has actually made the awareness of this much simpler. I think we've come to a stage where 50% of my merchants onboarded are what we call DIY. They onboard themselves, right? They go to the app store, download the app, order the QR code from the app, and I ship it to them, right? But I think the first few years were a lot of struggle. It required like our ability to manage large fleets and going merchant after merchant and educating them on this. I think we are doing the same on POS now. I think we are taking our POS systems into the store and telling him there is no monthly rental. He has an option of taking money into his bank account for zero. He can't believe it because it's a model which he's seen for 20 years, and everyone has charged him a rental and everyone has charged him a MDR rate. And we are facing similar issues as we saw on the UPI, that the a bit of disbelief, then circumspection, and then eventually moving on to let me try it out. And therefore, we have gone again to a heavy feet on street model for that business right now. And hopefully, as that also scales, we will be able to pull back the number of people we have on the ground, and then it will start digitally, right? So I think nothing replaces. I'm a big believer in digital businesses, but I'm also a big believer in nothing changes. And nothing can replace like a human-to-human interaction, right? So we do still use a combination of both to keep our costs manageable, but also to ensure that merchant at every point of time feels covered and he knows there is some person he can call who can like solve his issues.
So that actually gives me a lot of resonance to what my very good friend Rishi Gupta, who is the CEO of Bank, says. He coined a word called as phygital. and he has made it a religion of that entire organization. So anything that you do is digital. There has to be a physical presence and a digital touch to it. And I think that also resonates with what you are speaking about. And other element of all these things ultimately is what kind of trust you can give to your customer, what kind of experience and trust you can give to that customer. Uh, uh, as a payments company, uh, Anand, you have had a lot of, we have just 5 minutes, but quickly for 1 minute, how do you give that element of trust to your customer, especially in the rural areas, because they are not so educated? How can you give them that confidence?
So we were standing in national duty, Babu, during the pandemic, and the government gave money in the bank account. Our retail partners, whom we call digital pradhans, they gave it in the hands of citizens, millions of these citizens, right? They know for sure, while in fintech you call it cashback for habit formation, here the government gave money for trust formation. Pratyaksham pramanam, you put your thumb and you get your money. There is no trust deficit, by the way. Instant gratification. You put money and it pings you like mobile recharge in your bank account and you get an SMS. Where is the trust deficit? It augmented the trust already there of our retail partners who are handpicked and chosen. Yeah, these digital pradhans give immense comfort because they sell you grocery, the milk for your kid and everything. So the trust is there. We have just augmented.
Interesting. Surabhi, you have been a tech player, okay? And fintech is definitely tech after all. They
Yeah,
need a
yeah.
lot of trust to be on the back end. How are you working in the area of trust or bringing in newer and newer levels of frictionless security to the fintechs in this world?
Yeah, Babu, like I was mentioning before also that, you have to kind of building trust is like putting in a lot of investments in making sure that, your environment is secure. But then, there's this big aspect of cost, and you really need to be aware of, how much to do, and where should you really put a stop to bus ho gaya abhi. So that is a place where, as HP, we kind of help a lot of organizations reach that balance. We do a lot of consulting around how do we, play a balance between keeping things secure, making sure there's no data leak, making sure there's automation. We see a lot of activities which can be automated so that the customers, the organizations are left to do whatever they do best. So for example, if Suhail wants to put people on the floor and he wants people to reach out, well and good, he has more time available, he has more resources available to do that. So automating the mundane tasks, making sure that you reach your operational costs, they are reduced, and for that, we kind of do a lot of consulting around how do you keep everything in a secure environment, keep your data secure, keep it on a on-premise sort of a setting, move into a hybrid in an agile fashion. For example, Babu, I'm just going to leave by saying one last thing is that we helped a customer migrate 600 petabyte of data seamlessly, without any prevention, without any downtime, and we helped them save $70 million at the end of a couple of years. They ended up saving $70 million just by transitioning into a different technology set. So that is the sort of consulting and the sort of activities that we are engaging customers to encourage and to take up.
That is typically something that is required by all the public sector banks, which are trying to amalgamate all those banks that they have merged up, and they have to maintain the calm on the top, whereas all this
All
hodgepodge
the
can go
seamless
on the bottom.
migrations. Yes, yes,
That is
it has
that
to
is
be seamless.
definitely there. And all the fintechs are going to go through this in the future when you take over organizations, because inorganic is the only way to grow beyond a particular level, because otherwise none of us are going to live for 50 more years of our career. So inorganic is the way for forward for many of us. And as before we leave, just one minute thought from you, Siddharth, on what kind of governmental help and what kind of support is required to replicate the success of a Silicon Valley, Singapore, UK, or any of these parts of the world into the Indian fintech industry to bring in more fintechs? Just an aspirational
I
thought
think
from all
I
you and Bala.
sure. Sure. I think, see, government is very keen to go vertical and horizontal. And the classic example is UPI. Look at the penetration when it comes to, when I call it horizontal, or look at the evolution of UPI when it's said from a vertical. What we need is that the government needs to, stop beyond a point. Not like the classic case is the MDR case. Every fintech is bleeding today because of the MDR regulations. So be a thought leader, get things in place, and then maybe step out. Today UPI also great platform. We've seen Google writing to Federal Bank or 2 years back that we should have UPI kind of a system there. But again, issues at stability level. So, not criticizing NPCI or anybody here, but yes, be a thought leader, get the things rolling, and then leave it for players like us to run it.
Excellent. Bala, any take from you on this?
Very similar to what Siddharth is saying, is that the government should get out of things like startup investing and stuff like that. There are enough investors in the world who can do that, and definitely not micromanage things like MDR. And they should also fix some of the sounds. Like, for example, we have Aadhaar, which a lot of us work very hard on. We have eKYC, but not quite working, right? Because of whatever Supreme Court regulations. We have e-sign, not quite working, right? Because of various regulatory changes that need to happen. So some of the follow through, rather than sort of just launching new initiatives and just sort of focusing on some business aspect of it, follow on the regulatory aspect of it and actually make it adoptable, right? For example, KYC is a good example where it's a great regulation. It worked for a while. Technology is still working, but the whole industry is using something called OKYC, which is very clunky. It's a total hack, right? And it's a workaround because of some regulatory thing that is not yet clear. So just cleaning up, I think the thought is good, thought leadership is good. So I'm not complaining either. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think we have done 9. But if we want to go to 10, from 9 to 10, I would say just fix some of these smaller issues, which I think is totally easily fixable. It just somebody just needs to focus on it. It's the nitty-gritty, the last mile problem that need to be addressed.
Fantastic. That was a great ending to this wonderful conversation and putting together. We have had some fantastic thought from thought leaders like all of you who are here, and varied kind of experiences from banking to technology to energy, the energized Suhail, and of course the telco guy Siddharth. I remember meeting Siddharth during his Panamax days when we did a cooperative banking event in Gujarat. That was the first time.
Oh, yes. Correct. I remember. That was the first time we actually met.
Yeah, what a fantastic ecosystem that was. We were talking to the cooperative banks there. Way back about 7-8 years ago. So great.
True.
And thanks, Surabhi, for sharing your perspectives as well. We have had a great conversation. And to all the viewers who are listening to us, we will be ending this conversation session right now. As per the program schedule, we have not, probably some of you may not have been informed that we will have our valedictory session now. We are going to have a valedictory session by Sri A.G. Das, the Executive Director of PFRDA, who is going to be our guest of honor today. And he is going to share with us some of PFRDA's milestone achievements, initiatives, and plans in the current financial year, and also how they are working with the fintechs and the technology sector to take the PFRDA to greater levels. And a lot of scope for fintechs and organizations like all of you to engage with the Regulatory Development Authority there. Thank you very much, everyone from the panel. We have had a great session. And I thank you very much, all the viewers, for watching. We look forward to have more such wonderful conversations with you again. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.